right, welcome back to the podcast. I'm really excited for this one. It's just going to be myself and our guest, Rex Blateri, and Kate and Dave are both traveling. Rex is someone I've wanted to have on for a long time. Rex, you've been a member for 10 years? Right around
Going
10
on,
years?
I think, between 9 and 10.
9 and 10, right in that range. And then you've been around the Columbus CrossFit scene for another 4-ish years before that.
I've been doing CrossFit for now going on 15 years.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. So Rex is, when I look, so I kind of geek out on this on Wodify. I look at who's taken the most classes at our gym. So I like to even kind of like rank myself in there. I try and take a lot of classes and taste everything that we're cooking here as much as we can and get around to like the power hour and the CrossFit and kind of work our way around. And then, so I'll look at, Tyler Ferricks is one guy who's been really consistent for a decade. He has a lot of classes. We just had him on the podcast. And then, but the guy who has everyone blown away by a lot is Rex. So when you look at logged in classes over that 9 or 10 years, and I had a couple year head start, he went way past me. So it's really cool to see how active and vibrant you've stayed through this whole time. And it's, we'll get into this in a little bit, but it's not like you started CrossFit when you were, 18 years old. So you were a grown up when you did it. And, I love to start out when I bring guests on is like, what's just your general background? What'd you grow up playing sports-wise? And then kind of like, how did you eventually find your way towards CrossFit?
Well, first, we grew up in a football family.
Okay.
You were going to play football. You were going to train in football. So I remember being drug out of the public pool going into my 8th grade year, the summer, by my older brother getting to the gym.
Okay.
And it was time to lift, doing agility with my father and my brother and all his friends, preparing for 2-a-days. So how it started with the lifting, Brandon, if you remember the old Nautilus.
Yeah, oh yeah.
The Nautilus gyms that they were putting out there with the Nautilus machines.
Yeah.
That's where I started my lifting.
What type of a gym? What was it, like a YMCA? Like what was it labeled as?
It was a Nautilus gym.
Oh, okay, just a Nautilus. That
Nautilus.
Was the okay.
And it was basically it was all Nautilus machines.
Yep.
If for those of you that don't know Nautilus, it was based on the CAM system.
Yeah.
But they had a machine for every part of your body.
Yep.
And you went through the circuit. And that's all it was. There wasn't any running, no treadmills, anything. And that's where, I started to get strong and get in better shape going into my 8th grade year of football and then freshman and sophomore. And then, throughout high school, lifting, and then going into college and doing a different type of lifting program.
So what type of, we're going back into, the 70s for high school?
Yeah.
So like the late 70s?
Yeah, I graduated in 82.
In 82? Okay. Yeah. Okay. And what type of lifting did you guys do in high school?
Well, in high school, it was more of it was not real structured. It was a lot of your power lifting.
Okay.
It was your squats, your deadlift, and your bench.
Yep.
And that's basically what it was. In college, looking back in 2-a-days, and I played Division III football, we did more interval training.
Okay.
Kind of what we would call, whether it's your EMOM or when you program your 3-minute on, 1 minute off type workouts.
Okay.
Where you had stations. They really focused on that type of training.
Where did you go to college?
I played for Upper Iowa University. It was a Division III school in Iowa.
Where did you grow up for high school?
I started out, I grew up on the west side, went to Bishop Reedy, and then transferred my senior year to Franklin Heights High School.
Very cool. Okay, so you started lifting weights in 8th grade, right around 8th grade. And, just to give that context, so like people, and if you're not comfortable answering this, but people don't know how old you are. They're like, if they, I think you just said, hey, I graduated in 82. Yeah. So that gives you a good idea. But like, so this gives you, so that is, you are 60 now?
I'll be 61 in December.
Oh, wow. So that is, you're looking at 46 years of lifting weights now?
Yeah.
Somewhere right in there?
Lifting and doing different things that I know we'll probably get into because I shifted. It was kind of cyclical. When I was in my early 20s, I got into distance running. So I was basically skinny. So it's been cyclical. When I had my first child, I didn't do anything, and that's very common. You kind of stop and focus on, the baby. So there was a break there, but I've gone through periods where I've done nothing but lifting. Then I got into distance running. And then I started to merge the two together when I was running marathons for 15 years. But I was also doing powerlifting.
They call
which is kind of weird.
So that is actually something that's gotten, it's trending right now and popular. Mm-hmm. It's called like hybrid athletes. Mm-hmm. So it's, now they do it people do it a few different ways. I'm just noticing this on like Instagram, and then people are posting about it. It's people, sometimes they're like bodybuilders, typically like upper body based, or doing powerlifting and then long distance running. Mm-hmm. But it's a very new thing over the like last 2 years. But you were doing that how long ago?
I would say 15, probably 20 to 25 years ago.
Okay.
Where I did 15 years of when I was big time marathon running. I was running half marathons races every week, or 20-mile races. But I never stopped the power lifting. So I would power lift at lunchtime.
Okay.
And then do all my marathon training in the afternoon. And just, and I hate talking about this, but one of my proudest moments was coming, like 3 weeks after the Boston Marathon. I ran the Boston Marathon. I benched 305.
Wow.
So I was.
Is this pre-CrossFit? So is this okay?
Yes.
So that is like, these are the feats that. What's really interesting about this is these are the type of things that like Greg Glassman and these guys would talk about. They would say, no one can do this now. You were doing it. But this is going to be what you're going to see is like physiologically possible. And all the sports scientists, like, and even the physiologists, like when I was in college, like going for, phys ed and exercise physiology, they're like, like if you would have to be like locked into certain things. And mm-hmm. It just like exercise science hadn't caught up with like, well, let's try it and see what's going on. And you were already, so you're benching over 300 pounds and running Boston, which is very challenging just to simply qualify for within like, what did you say? The same couple days?
Oh, it was like three or 4 weeks
Within the same few weeks of it.
Yeah.
I mean,
But I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those, no one told me this is impossible or this is going to hurt. The only thing that you heard, Brandon, at that time was distance running, long cardios deplete, your body, and you'll never get stronger. So I do think there is something, to that.
Sure.
I was carrying a lot more body fat, being a distance, doing distance running, things like that. But no one ever told me, it's impossible. I just didn't know any better.
You just have to bring up, those attributes, and it's possible to be strong and have a lot of aerobic capacity at the same time.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's pretty cool that, so I'm sure when you saw CrossFit where you tried it, it was like, oh, okay, this is kind of something I've been waiting for, for, I don't know, the last 15, 20 years. Like, you've been doing and dabbling, and you're lifting weights, you're running. Now you can combine, like, because you're doing like this aspect of it and this aspect, and then it's everything in between. Yeah. So it's like the more moderate weights. It's like your anaerobic conditioning, not just aerobic, not just like complete heavy weightlifting.
Yeah. I was told, someone told me, go out and on YouTube and watch this thing called CrossFit. And that was, 15 years ago. And just so happened about 1.5 miles away from my house in Lewis Center. And I just, it was soon after, I decided no more marathons, no more, I'm done. I'm just going to try something else. Mm-hmm. And I was into kettlebell. And I was going to start into kettlebell competition.
Okay.
And I was doing a lot of my training for Boston, using kettlebells.
Okay.
I was doing 45-minute workouts just with kettlebell.
Yep.
And I think that really helped me. I went into a CrossFit gym and I just, observed. And the next day I signed up. I said, this is it. This is it. They had running. I remember they were doing snatches. They were doing kettlebell. And I just said, this is it. I've never wanted to just do one thing, but cyclical, I kind of fell into that. Well, I'm really hitting running hard.
Yep.
Now I'm stopping running and I'm doing more powerlifting or just any lifting, Globo Gym lifting. And then I just said, no, this is it. This is exactly what I was looking for.
Yeah, that's really cool. Kettlebells, it's interesting. I'll always tell people, like, if I'm going real minimalist, like say I didn't live near a CrossFit gym, I'd probably have 2 or 3 sets of kettlebells and a pull-up bar and a jump rope, and I'd be good to go.
Yes.
Like, I mean, kettlebells are the most versatile thing. And then if I had one piece of equipment, it'd be a 53-pound kettlebell.
Sure.
And then again, like when we travel or if we're driving somewhere, I throw a kettlebell, a 53, Kate throws in a 35, and we will train with just that for a week.
Yeah.
And we can maintain some really good fitness. So kettlebells, not to just completely diverge off of it, but it's something I try to really maintain here at Grandview, and was a big part of CrossFit. And like kind of when you were getting into it, like most of the gyms really embraced it, and you can see our selection of them. We have a ton of them here. And then now with like the open, and since kettlebells are not really something that's easy to judge, they've actually pulled them out of a lot of programming. So a lot of gyms buy programming now. We do all our own programming here, but they don't use kettlebells anymore. Like I don't think CompTrain uses kettlebells. They all pulled them out, and then they just only use dumbbells because you can't judge stuff as well.
Sure.
But it's such a good implement.
Yes.
Like it's never going anywhere from what we do. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So you saw CrossFit, you signed up right away, and you're a guy who, when you start getting into something, I'm very similar. Like, at least early on, I always want to at least try a competition. How long did it take you to like go from signing up, joining a CrossFit gym to finding a competition? And then I remember seeing you at one at the, I believe it was the Fit Club Games, maybe in 2010.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it couldn't have been long because that was 14 years ago. Yeah. So you started 15. I mean, so was that your first one?
Was that the one under the arch in downtown Columbus at McPherson Commons?
I know they had one there. This one I do remember, and you were either at that one or the one before it. I know, like, Dave was there, and he still went to our gym before he was coaching at Fit Club. But I think Mitch, like, rigged up some, like literally, like, the yellow string that you would, like, tie things at, like onto, like,
did the pull
plastic things.
The plastic. I wasn't at that.
Okay,
I was at,
okay. The year after that. Okay,
because
because I just remember seeing you at one of those very early ones.
Yeah.
And I remember you were hard charging, and you were probably the oldest guy in it, or one of the older guys in it. And I remember, I never forgot you after that, because I just remember you were getting it. And I'm like, that guy's good. Yeah. And I never forgot you after that. So
I think it was one of my first competitions. Okay. So I was basically about a year and a half into CrossFit.
Okay.
I think I still had, I think I was about 2 years away from doing my last marathon, but I still ran, basically kept in half marathon shape.
Okay.
So I still had that kind of the cardio. The strength part I was still lacking in. But yeah, that was, I think, one of my first competitions. So it took me about a year and a half to be confident enough to do the kind of the hard things, Brandon, the overhead squats, things like that, the snatches, and the overhead squats. So yeah, I think it took about a year and a half.
Yeah, developing that mobility. I mean, you had so much capacity, but you also had, 10 years of football on you, and a lot of running, which makes your ankles fairly stiff to not bend in that overhead squat position. I even knew that just from sports. For me, like, when you're playing on the balls of your foot or running a lot, like, your ankle doesn't want to bend that way to where, like, that overhead squat sits down. Like, you want to sit way back into that squat. Like, so a lot of those positions, I remember even for me, really getting into it at 26, 27, were already a little sticky. And then Graham, who I started with, he had some football stiffness and injuries. And then when I'd see these young guys, like, who are starting more, like, right in college, and they adapt to that mobility a little bit faster. So I can imagine, like, those moves, when you're in your 40s getting going, and, like, now you're learning them, like, man, I got some work to do to kind of like loosen that up.
Well, and and the entire gym knows that I'm not known for my mobility. I've never been known for my mobility. And that's probably, I know it's not probably, I know that's my own doing. I haven't done that where I should have backed off on, going out on a run or doing lifting or doing something and working on mobility.
It's not the fun aspect of training to, like, work on. I was just talking to Katie last week, and I don't know how it came up, but, like, my right knee is just bothering me a little bit when I'm squatting. And I was like, Katie, I just saw a picture of me when we were training, I don't know, about 10 years ago. And I had a lot of weight. I like squat clean, like 265, like a good, nice, heavy squat clean. My position was so good. Like, my knees were tracking out. My, like, toes were forward. My chest is up. I was like, watch this. I'm like, I just tried to like get into an air squat. And I'm like, I'm pushing my knee. I'm like, well, I've lost some mobility there. I'm like, that might be a reason like why that knee's, but like, I need to get back to working on that. Cause I'm like, I can't even make that position now. And like, I was catching, you know, all this weight in the bottom of it. I'm like, that would probably help quite a bit.
It does catch up with you. I mean, I can tell you, and I think with all of my shoulder issues and eventually surgery and stuff, it does catch up with you. The lack of mobility puts you in that bad position. And then when you're doing a relatively heavy load for me, which would be much lighter than what someone else, but it's heavy for me, it does put you in that bad position, and it's going to cause some problems.
Yeah. I mean, it is what it is, though, sometimes. I mean, the cool thing is like, yeah, you might be a little stiff in some positions. Here's what you are not for, you know, a guy who's 61 years old. You're not stiff at all. Anyone that I get in here and train at your age, like, it's relatively stiff maybe for an optimal position for a games athlete, but like for even someone 20 years younger than you, that's a pretty damn good position. Yeah. So what's really cool is you've been able to maintain this level of training over this very, very long period of time. And there's a funny thing that I've probably had a dozen people over the years at least say like, man, Rex is awesome. Like, I hope I'm in as good a shape as Rex is when I'm his age. And this has been my answer every single time. I said, well, let's work on getting close to as good a shape as Rex is in at the age you're at now, which is like 29. Because I don't think you're going to climb there. Like, let's get there now. Like, obviously you want to maintain it, but I'm like, we're not even close to that now. Let's work on like getting there now. But you've maintained just this high level of fitness. You know, you've been right on the edge of the games to the point where I actually thought you made it, but they had changed. It was when they were flip-flopping rules every year. It's like 10, 20, 10. Did it go back to 20 the year after?
It did.
And then it went back down to 10, and now it's really opened up to, I think, 40, which is pretty cool. I like that they've, like, expanded that. Yeah. But, I mean, you've been, like, right on the edge of, like, you know, CrossFit Games level training. How many Boston marathons have you qualified for?
Well, I qualified for 2. Just ran 1. It was one of those, been there, done it.
Sure.
That was, you know, check it off the bucket.
How many marathons did you run total?
I think probably 13.
Okay.
You know, during that 15-year stretch, there were some years I just ran the half marathon.
Yep. How many of those have you done?
Countless.
That's what I was going to say. Like, you still do those.
Yes.
Yeah, you still do those like fairly regularly.
Coming up, I plan on doing the Columbus Marathon next month, doing the half marathon, which is great. I don't know if you know, Brandon, there's a lot of people, quite a few athletes here that are training for either the full or the half. Yep. Some are doing their first marathon. Some are doing their first half marathon, which is great. I think it's a testament of, you know, people looking outside and, you know, seeing if they can do it.
I need to sign up for one of those. Yeah. I need to check the half.
Yeah.
I need to get that half checked off. Kate's done quite a few of those. Mm-hmm. And it's like, that's a more attainable one. Like, I think one that I could run, you know, like one for someone to run, like with some intent, and be able to do that before I look at like, you know, walking a marathon,
you know. A half is attainable. I tell everyone, as long as you get in your long run, and doing CrossFit, when you get into the full, then you gotta, I mean, you're doing your 8, 9, 10 mile runs during the week, and you know, then you have to adjust that. But I think it's great. I think it's great to see people doing different things. I know you had Mike Gold on.
Oh yeah, we talked about that half that you guys did. Yeah. You paced him out for it.
Yeah,
and that was awesome.
And I thought for sure Mike was going to do what we would call CrossFit the first 5 miles, but he paced it and he sprinted the last mile.
Wow!
But that shows you what kind of conditioning CrossFit puts you in.
Yep.
And I know a 20-minute, 30-minute AMRAP seems like forever for us CrossFitters. But I think you see if you can get in and kind of train your body to handle that hour and a half, the CrossFit puts you into that situation that you can succeed.
It definitely develops a toughness that transfers over very well to a lot of other things. And I just know that from doing other sports and stuff outside of CrossFit when I've done it. And I can tell, that there's a spot that now you've gone to, even from a physical aspect, but also from a mental aspect where you're like, man, I've been in some nasty spots and like these open workouts and, we're just weekly workouts. So you're like, oh my gosh. And usually those sports and things, you're not even quite getting into that. It's just maybe sometimes a little longer. You have to kind of suffer through it. Sure. I have a funny story about so Rex has done the Arnold Pump and Run, which is a great sport for him because he's a good bench presser and he can run. So we're lining up and Rex is like right around me, and I'm doing the event as well, and I'm a decent 5K runner, and right like between 21 and 22 minutes are like pretty regular runs when I'm in shape for them. And I didn't know how fast Rex really was. Like I do in like workouts, but I'm like, I think I've got a shot at getting Rex on this. And, I'm like, and here's my thing. I'm like, I can kick pretty good. I can sprint pretty good at the end. I'm like, if I can keep him in my eyesight for the race, when we get about 800 meters out, I'm going to try and go and catch up to him. We got probably about 800 meters out and I lost him and never found him again. He took off. I'm like, oh man. I'm like, okay, I just want to keep my eye on him. And then he was gone. I'm like, never, that whole thing went out the window. I mean, I think he was like a sub 20 minute 5K maybe. I mean, he was gone. I'm like,
that was a good one. Yeah. That was a good one. I enjoyed, with you and Kate, doing that pump and run. That's the only one I've done.
Okay.
But those type of things are fun. Doing different things. But again, falling back to CrossFit, it kind of prepares you.
Yep.
Along with the powerlifting that we have Power Hour.
Yep.
I don't miss Power Hour at all. If I'm injured, I'll do an adaptive version of Power Hour. I love the Power Hour.
Yep.
And then, like I said, Brandon, when you know how I feel about Rev.
Yep.
I'm a big supporter of doing Rev, and now you see even L2 people jumping into Rev.
Yeah, that's that, especially on Saturdays. That's such a big class where I'm like, shoot, it's starting to pull everyone out of CrossFit right now. Because it's really fun. I mean, they're hard. 40-minute partner workouts and they're running and you've got you're doing devil's press and then your partner goes and I mean they're like some of the most popular workouts in the gym now.
But it's the variety.
Yeah,
it's the constant, and it's the ultimate of what Glassman tried to create is the varied movements. You never know if it's going to be a heavy, if it's going to be a cardio, if it's going to be a strength. And that's what I love, about this gym, that we have these options now, and you've built a great business model.
So, I really appreciate that. A question I have for you, because, and it might be, you might have a nugget here for us. I've seen you, and if you've trained for 45 years and done a big variety of things, you've got your butt knocked down, you've got injured, you've got sick, and you've came back and jumped back on the wagon and have maintained amazing fitness, and you always get back in shape. Like, what is it like? How are you able to? Because I've seen people, you know, I've trained a couple thousand people now, and I'm always trying to figure out, you know, it can be the smallest thing that's just like they're gone.
Yeah.
And then, but you've always, I mean, I've seen you go through surgeries. COVID just kicked your ass like severely when you got that. You know, I remember that. And then, man, I just watch you build yourself back up.
I think it's the mindset.
Yep.
It's as soon as I can get back in, do something.
Yeah.
Do something. Don't sit back. It was kind of neat. You know, I went through the shoulder surgery in November of last year, and Dan was 3 weeks behind me.
Okay.
So we kind of planned it out. You know, I would be the guinea pig, but now he took more time off to rest.
Yep.
I was in the next day after surgery.
Yeah, I remember.
Which probably wasn't the smartest thing, but it was just, can I do a one-arm row? What can I do?
Yep.
If you look at Kate Duffy right now, she's coming back, a great example.
Yeah.
She is coming back from that knee surgery, a very severe knee surgery.
Yep.
And she's back in CrossFit already.
Yeah.
Doing some things. So it is doing what you can.
Yeah.
If it's just one arm row, the kettlebells were a savior with a one arm, you know, with my arm in a sling. So whether it's a knee or back or shoulder or something like that, it's, you know, being creative. I always tell people after a surgery, it's kind of fun because the pressure's off you, and then you just be creative.
Yeah, you don't have to score the workout or like you're not going to be like, okay, hey, I'm competing against like the version of me for you know, like you're just trying to participate.
Yeah, and we talk about it, you know, whether it's you know, Drake or Jack, the small wins. You know, coming off of like an injury, that's a small win. The first time I got my toes to bar after the surgery, my first handstand push-ups, which I'm still struggling with, but it feels a little bit better. So you get the small wins. Don't try to hit the home run. You're not gonna. It's not gonna be overnight. Just chip away at it. But I always tell people, be creative, have fun, see what you can do to keep moving. Just don't stop moving.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think, you know, if I could sort of distill it down, what happens more often than not when someone gets a setback is, you know, you've built up a certain level of fitness, and it's your ego that gets in the way. 9.5 times out of 10, you don't want to go back into that class. You were doing, you know, I'm doing the workout with 135-pound clean and jerks. Now I got to probably use 95 on this and do maybe like not as many reps because it's just going to wipe me out.
Yeah.
And I was typically in the front of the class. Now I'm going to be in the back. I've gained 20 pounds and they don't want to start again. I've really noticed that, and it's really, and I've felt that personally when I get knocked down, like some hesitation to just get going because I feel embarrassed of myself, and I always get back on it, but it gives you like a little little hesitation, and you never have that. You're like that day one, and that's what keeps you going. Yeah. Like you working out the day after your surgery, you know, from a medical standpoint, probably not the smartest thing in the world. From a physical standpoint, like little benefit, probably even like it's just slowing down, maybe a little bit of healing. From a mental standpoint, 100% is why you keep staying fit, because I'm not breaking the chain. Like I'm not letting myself fall apart. Yeah. Like you're not going to stop me. it didn't do anything for you physically. Like that day you did rows isn't why you're in shape now, but it is in the way that it kept you moving and trying something.
Big part of for the last, whether it's 20 years, 30 years, whatever, I'll confess, it's not about what your body looks like, and not so much that. It's not the times that you put into Wattify or your max lift. I do a lot of this for the mental aspect.
Yeah.
It is my release.
Yep.
It keeps me going. It gives me a goal to aim for. My goals as I get older, as we talked, are adjusted.
Yep.
I have to adjust them, but it's the mental aspect. It is that when you shut your eyes at night, you did accomplish something, and then during that time you do feel great.
Yeah.
So even if I have a bad time, a bad score, a bad lift or something, again, something was accomplished.
Yeah.
And I feel better about it.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Exercise. There's so many more studies. Like they don't even know how or the mechanisms of how it works. It's, it's literally the best. It's the best medicine for everything almost. And that sounds kind of like I'm reductionist there, but it improves your mood. You sleep better. You feel better about yourself. Your immune system's better. Everything is better when you're training regularly. You feel better. To the point where I feel like, with my family and friends outside of CrossFit, I kind of sound like an asshole because, like, I try to fix people's problems through, like, fitness.
Yeah, sure.
I'm like, it's going to fix everything. And it doesn't necessarily do that, but it really, if you get yourself in great shape and you're training regularly, it fixes a lot. It changes your life in a very positive way. And you're just a shining example of, like, someone who is, 60 years old, who no one would know that. I mean, again, like, you're coming down to OU with us next weekend. You were there with us last year. Like, to see a guy your age just being young and vibrant, man, like, and just the energy that you put off is it's very cool to see that. It's like, it's a goal of mine, and I think it's a goal of anyone who's here, is just to, like, feel and feel like yourself still, Yeah. That's the goal, is, like, not to be like, well, you're not a I used to guy. Like, I used to do that stuff. Or, like, you're not, I've never heard you say, well, back when I was younger. I've never heard you ever say that, because your eyes are always forward and you're looking towards what you're going to do. And I think that is so freaking cool. And it's just a goal of mine. And that's, like, a big reason I just wanted to have you on here. So, like, looking forward, I know you've been dealing with this shoulder thing, and I don't know where you're at right now. Like, just as far as training, like, I don't know if you have, like, a specific competitive goal, or even just like, hey, I want to feel this way or get back to a certain thing. Like, what are your, like, goals kind of coming into training right now?
Things are coming around. I've been evaluating, every day. And it's getting stronger, and I'm able to do a couple more things. I haven't tried to muscle up since the injury, and the injury was the previous April. And I'm a little leery about that. Honestly, I would like to do the Open again. And see, where I stand. And see if I can get back to maybe those levels that I was doing in my early and mid 50s, where I had some success. But we'll see. I feel pretty good. Just weak right now. But that if I don't it's really no big deal.
Yeah.
I'm just having a great time.
That's awesome.
And every day is a win. Every day that we show up here is a win, and just keeping it varied. And I'm happy with where my strength is going. Got to get back to a little bit more of the cardio and aerobic conditioning, but that's where the future is hopefully I can do the next open. I've been hurt. I think the last 4 opens I've been hurt with either a torn Achilles.
I remember the Achilles was really bothering you. Yep.
I had the torn Achilles. I had the near rupture of the quad. So hopefully I can just go into just do an open healthy.
No, I know. I feel you on that. Yeah, I think you can definitely do that. I think it takes a little planning though, and maybe adjusting to your volume, like maybe like you want to keep some intensity, but like staying away from riskier like moves or things that tend to aggravate it. Sure. Like, hey, I might avoid that for the month leading into the open. Yeah. That's where I've ran it. I've had to skip a couple opens here in the last few years. Because I'll try and push something like really hard a month out, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to try this, like, whatever the workout is. And then I'm like, I just get some horrible, like, nagging shoulder pain or a knee thing. And I'm like, that kind of took me out of it. So we all live and learn, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and it's taken me almost 61 years to learn. And it's a good thing is, you're not too old to learn.
Absolutely.
And I'm less stubborn now. And looking at the bar and saying, no, my body's not ready for muscle ups right now.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is in my mind, but, and some of the other things that, much younger people are doing and making it look easy. I'm kind of backing off on that and saying, okay, I'm not ready for that, or I can only do that one time a month.
Yep.
I can do that workout, but it's one time a month.
Yep.
And so I'm starting to do a better job evaluating, and I would say anyone I don't call the 35s a master. I'm sorry, but the later masters class.
I understand
groups,
what you're saying.
Your 45s, your 50s. Even though there's unbelievable athletes in there, you got to start reevaluating. You got to evaluate every day.
Yeah. 35 is, like you said, you've got everything's there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The only thing I have seen with that 35 age group in CrossFit is such a recovery-based sport, and that is the one, like, those 35-year-old guys are every bit as good for a workout as anyone. Like, even better sometimes because they have all the experience and they've built up capacities that you can't build in 25 years. The one thing in like, over an actual CrossFit Games, it's the recovery aspect between stuff. Like, you start to lose, what I've noticed is, I'll call it like explosive endurance. So it's like, if I can just like a real simple workout, like doing Fran, taking an hour and then doing like some other hard, really intense workout, you lose a little bit of that ability to regenerate. But if you give them one workout, like
they're as
good at 35,
as they're as good as anyone.
I'll tell a lot of people too, actually, and just like having experience, a 40-year-old body is actually in many ways a lot better than a 20-year-old one, because you've had time. You've had time to build it up. You're experienced. You're a little more robust, actually, in a lot of ways. So. Yeah. I'm only 42, so I try not to make excuses for my age, and especially someone like, you've got 20 years on me, and you're like, shut up.
But, and when, for those 3 years, I went to the Granite Games.
Yep.
And I look back at what we did the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and going through that type of competition, which is very similar to the games.
Yes.
And how I just say, there's no way I didn't think I can do that stuff anymore because of how I struggle with recovery right now.
Yep.
So it's just how your body changes of doing those 3 workouts in a day,
Yep.
starting Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday.
You've aged into a different group though, so they're going to give you a little bit different training at this point. And so if you feel like you get to that spot, like I don't doubt that you'd be right there. So,
but you hit on it, the recovery.
Yeah.
The recovery, and I feel it every day.
Yeah.
Is there's some days where I'll say, my goodness, I'm wiped out. Where maybe 10 years ago, maybe even 7, 8 years ago, I would have been able to say, okay, I'm going to take a little break and I'm going to go do this. And now I'm ready to get in the car and go home.
Yeah, I get it.
So it again, your body is changing, but if you just keep it moving.
Yeah. It's what was there's a quote that I said, it's a lot better to wear out than to rust out.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you keep driving a car, it'll actually stay in better shape than if you just leave it outside.
I read a quote the other day, similar, which is, I would rather be the oldest in the weight room than the youngest in the nursing home.
100%.
I
love that.
Yeah.
Well, Rex, I appreciate you coming out, man. I think we'll put a fork in it here.
Okay.
And I'm excited to get this one out for everyone.
All righty.
Thanks, bud.
Thank you, Brandon.